Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Exchange podcast. Today we have Jon Block, founder and CEO of Syllepsis. Syllepsis are an AI consultancy that help companies navigate the increasingly complex world of AI with a unique focus on knowledge engineering, which he'll explain in a bit more detail later because it's quite complicated. With a background in media and product, Jon's well placed to give us some detailed insights into what's coming at the intersection of AI and media. So, Jon, welcome to the podcast and great to have you on.
Thanks, Gareth. Looking forward to it.
No problem. So if it's okay, we'll dive straight into the questions because I know you've got a lot of things you want to share with us. So if you could just tell us a bit about Syllepsis and your role within the business.
Yeah, so Syllepsis is a company I founded, first company I've founded, actually. I'm a new founder later in life, at the end of 2024, focused on AI consultancy and really helping companies navigate the change that's happening throughout every industry at the moment. Before that, I've always been working in technology, media technology. I've been in chief product officer roles or SVP product roles at various AdTech companies, big media companies as well. But at the end of 2024, I felt there was such a sea change coming with LLMs and the incredible stuff that we were all experiencing them doing, that I just felt it was the right time to jump into this new, exciting, brave new world. And maybe I have to say there was a personal element of it too, in that I felt there was a massive wave of change coming, and I quite fancied to try and surf that wave rather than get swamped by it or tumbled on the rocks. So I founded an AI consultancy. It's been going a year and a half or so now, and we've been working with small companies all the way up to large companies, or largish, I'd say probably companies from about 15 staff all the way up to about 3,000. And as you said in your intro, we have a bit of a unique spin on this concept of knowledge engineering, which I'll go into in a moment. And what's my role? I'm the founder, and as we've just discussed before we started this session, I've got to, I think, start coming to terms with the fact that I should call myself the founder and CEO, which I think is a bashful Brit I'm not quite comfortable with yet, but I should be soon, because
I think congratulations are in order there, mate.
Thank you. Yes. And that's because, of course, the company's expanding. When there's one of you, it feels a bit over the top to suggest that there's you're the CEO. But when you're starting to grow, it kind of makes a bit more sense, especially if you're hiring other C-suite execs, which may be happening in the coming months.
That's great news. Fantastic. I think you touched on it a little bit there. What inspired you, because obviously you felt that there was a big sea change coming with AI, with the introduction of, I guess it was sort of ChatGPT that really, brought everyone's attention to the developments in AI and really commoditized it and made it widely known to the market. So you founded the company in, did you say 2024?
Oh, well, I started working on it December 2024. I think I instantiated the company on January the 10th, but I did that because I needed to send somebody a bill. But yeah, so end of the year, basically, New Year's Eve, shall we say?
Yeah. So, but obviously you had a background in media, ad tech, and product, so you're kind of very well placed for this sort of business. So you mentioned obviously you didn't want to get caught off guard by it, but was there anything else that inspired you to launch the consultancy?
So, a couple of things. Firstly, the previous 5 years or so, I'd had experience in C-suite roles. So where, when you're in the C-suite, you're part of a team. You have your own team. I had my product team at my old company View, but you're also part of a team with the CHRO, with the CMO, with the CRO. And you learn so much about how businesses run at that senior leadership level. And I really felt that I could see coming a gap between C-suite and the way that they've been running businesses for so many years, and their incredible expertise and knowledge and experience. But I could see the gap with how quickly things were going to be changing with AI. And I felt that was a gap that I just wanted to help fill, because I could bring my my product background, my product innovation background, and I'm very much from a product evangelism background as well. So talking excitedly about products and innovations, and I could bring that to bear alongside my experience of running a company in the C-suite and really try to join things up. So that was one key aspect, or one key driver. I'd say the other driver was also just partly, I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. It was partly fear. I knew that so much was going to change, and I wanted to understand as much as possible I could about that change, and to learn, almost spend my time full time, day in, day out, focusing on what this change meant, because I felt it was going to be good for me. And I think a lot of, I guess, the most progressive people who are embracing AI, there's a bit of that as well. It's so exciting, but it is also quite scary.
Definitely. I think you've touched on something there that sort of senior people in businesses, especially, maybe don't really understand AI, and there's definitely a work to do in terms of, I mean, you might find some be completely ignorant of the capabilities and therefore missing the opportunities for their businesses, but then you might find others who are ignorant of the capabilities in another way, in terms of they think that it can do so much and that it's going to completely revolutionize their business and change it. They're like, well, we'll just use AI there, right? And that it's not currently possible with the technology that's available. So I think you've touched on something there that that's going to be a massive gap, surely, in certainly the next 5 to 10 years, while businesses adopt AI. Educating more senior people in the business to make sure that they understand the capabilities of AI and what it can actually bring to their business.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's a good phrase that I really like, which is that there's a very jagged edge in AI. And I think it comes from a play on cutting edge, but where there is some points of the edge that are much further forwards and much more cutting edge. And then there's other points that are further back. And whether that's businesses, whether that's and where they are, but more likely it's actually where individuals are or where departments are. And of course, some roles and some businesses, it doesn't suit them to be at the cutting edge. So, for example, areas of business that I've been working with or pitching to in the last year include things like railway safety compliance. And as you can probably imagine, that's an area where they are taking their time to decide whether AI is something that they could or should use. And I think that's fair enough. We don't want railway safety being run by AI, or ChatGPT is not quite ready to run CFL yet. But other areas where maybe, especially medias are much more progressive, innovative industry. There are so many companies that are innovating in this space, so that makes sense that they're much more at the pointy part of that jagged edge.
Definitely, yeah. I think we've seen. I think our industry is probably one of the most affected by AI. If you were to look at like the landscape, because like you say, there's always been, obviously we work within programmatic, and there's always kind of been that sort of artificial intelligence edge to what we do, but now it's kind of coming into the operations side. You've helped us with the knowledge architecture, which we need to touch on, I guess. But there's almost every facet. We're looking at how to apply it in sales. Almost every facet of the business can now be changed by this. And you mentioned railway safety. Well, yeah, you can see why they might not want AI handling that. But there's a little bit of a give with some of what we do. So it can only, it could hopefully only make things better. But we've touched on a few things. Obviously, the gap in experienced and C-suite people's knowledge with AI. But what's the biggest mistake businesses are currently making with AI at the moment, do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. And this actually ties into what we were talking about: knowledge engineering, knowledge architecture. And I just want to say, first of all, I am biased here because, of course, this is actually what Syllepsis does. But then, of course, as a founder, I want to create a company that addresses the biggest gap in businesses at the moment, that I think is the biggest gap, at least. So, take this with a pinch of salt. But my view is that AI implementations the most common reason the implementations or the experimentations are failing in businesses is because the AI, however it's implemented as a tool, as a chatbot, whatever, it's making mistakes because it doesn't understand the company. It doesn't understand the ecosystem that company sits in. It doesn't understand the different departments, what the roles do in those departments. And it's also just creating generic output, which at first looks great. But then when you dive into it, when you think about, does it match up with your company DNA and actually the way that you do things at your company, it doesn't really, and it doesn't pass the standards, and it doesn't really reflect what makes you special as a company. And so therefore, I think the biggest gap in businesses at the moment, and the biggest mistake that's being made, is that businesses are jumping straight into trialing AI tools, whether they're custom focused generic chatbots, but whatever they are, but they're trialing them without first making sure that those AI tools understand the company enough. And that, of course, leads on to this concept of knowledge architecture, which I know you're very familiar with, Gareth, because of the work we've been doing together, but which is giving AI, whatever AI you use, access to knowledge and information about your company and instructions about how things are, different processes are meant to happen, and edge cases and all of that good stuff. Giving access to AI to a structured knowledge that it is able to explore and use. And we use the term knowledge architecture at Syllepsis, not knowledge base, because, well, frankly, knowledge bases have been around for 30 years and they are filled with all sorts of rubbish. There's obviously great stuff in the knowledge bases, but for every single good diamond in there, there's all sorts of, well, what's the opposite of diamonds that's appropriate to say on a podcast? Let's say bad stuff. There's lots of duplication. There's lots of legacy errors that no longer make sense. There's lots of customizations that you did for one client and you don't want to ever repeat again. And if you just point an AI at your knowledge base, it's going to find all of that stuff, and it won't be able to differentiate between what is good and what is bad, what is legacy, what is actually the new way of doing things. So we focus on creating an architected knowledge base, so knowledge architecture, as opposed to an undifferentiated pool of knowledge which has a load of bad stuff in there. And I think you point an AI at knowledge architecture, and suddenly it can do incredible things. It just takes it to the next level, basically. And that, I think, is the biggest gap in business at the moment. Diving into AI without sorting out the knowledge first. I mean, some people say it's obvious because the classic adage is what data is it, crap in, crap out, or whatever. And in a way, knowledge that I'm talking about is a form of data. But of course, it's a bit different here. It's the institutional knowledge of how that company runs, as opposed to just the raw data of, I don't know, advertising delivery or a sales CRM system.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, your kind of take on it, because obviously, like you say, AI operating in a vacuum, and I've actually noticed, I don't know if you have as well, if you still use ChatGPT. I know you're an advocate of Claude, but for personal, I use ChatGPT. And what they've started doing now is providing ChatGPT with context across all of your conversations. So it's actually saving and remembering details about you, and then it's bringing that into your current conversation. And if you think, that's a relatively new feature with ChatGPT, I guess potentially with compute and all that, it's quite an expensive one to implement, and they had to decide when they were going to do it. But you're effectively doing the same for businesses. You're providing that context into their AI, so it can actually provide better value. And it's very interesting what you're saying about the knowledge base versus architecture, because actually what we've done off the back of our work with you, is we actually have people who are now dedicated to updating our knowledge base regularly to make sure that the AI has the latest up-to-date context. And that's actually a very important part of making sure that AI can add value. Because like you say, otherwise, if you just give it access to all of your files and folders, it could have, it's hard for it to tell and differentiate Obviously, through our work with you, we've been able to we can give it now the most accurate and up-to-date context, which it can give us the better answers. And we're seeing the value from that. So it's been brilliant.
And I think actually just touching on that briefly, I think it's so great that you're doing that. And I really do think that this is a role that is going to be important for the next however many years, which is a knowledge manager or a knowledge architect. And alongside, I think the roles that actually sort out the AI infrastructure or look after the AI that you're using, it's basically people who are both either domain experts or they can work with the domain experts in your business and make sure that whatever the AI knows about and can act on is up to date, is correct and relevant, and basically that there's a single source of truth that the AI can understand. And definitely, if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in getting into new areas that I really believe are, going to be a secure job for the next however many years, the idea of a knowledge manager or an AI knowledge manager.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't think I've actually seen that job title yet. So it'd be interesting to see if that sort of starts popping up on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the clients that we've been working with in the last year and a half or so, they've been giving that kind of role to people as a part of their existing role. So, for example, their role is still whatever manager of whatever team, but they're also the knowledge manager who's looking after their area of the knowledge architecture.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if it's adopted. So we discussed a few actually, but just wanted to understand if there's any more ways. So obviously you've got the knowledge architecture bit. You're obviously helping your clients implement AI in a practical way, but is there any other ways in which you're doing that over and above the sort of knowledge architecture that we discussed?
Actually, that's a good point, and I should explain our philosophy at Syllepsis, because I do think this is a bit different, and this also touches on how we're helping clients in different ways. But our philosophy, it's based on the fact that we believe that AI is already incredibly capable at doing what a human knowledge worker would be able to do. And you could argue that knowledge work AGI, so artificial general intelligence, basically being as good as a human at knowledge work, is pretty much here. Obviously, it needs to be overseen, everything like that, but it's pretty much here. And even if you argue that it's not here, it's going to be here in the next 2 years. So if agentic AI is as good as a human at doing anything under a human's instruction, the main thing that is lacking is that it doesn't know about what it's meant to be doing, and it doesn't have the right instructions. So we believe the future of kind of knowledge work, the future of innovation and technical innovation in AI is all about knowledge and instructions, and not necessarily about application development or building new software. And I think this is a big change that's going to be going on in the industry in the coming years, where, I mean, Syllepsis, my company, we're already absolutely AI native. I obviously founded it to be an AI company. And so, for example, I don't use a CRM system, or not an off-the-shelf CRM system, because my AI runs CRM for me. If I want to see a visualization of the pipeline, I just ask the AI to render it, and it's pretty much instantaneous, and I can see a pipeline rendered, and that is therefore me no longer using a SaaS platform. I'm no longer signing up to Monday's CRM or Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it is, and I'm instead just using an AI system to run my business development pipeline, and I'm doing it not as a engineer. I've been an engineer in the past a bit, but I have not written really any code to do this. Actually, AI has written a bit of code for me, but barely any. For the most part, it's all just coming from knowledge, data, and instructions. And so at Syllepsis, we really believe in this future where applications, at least human-built applications, are going to become less and less relevant, but knowledge and instructions on how to do things for your company or for your clients is going to become more and more important. And so we're absolutely focused on knowledge and instructions as a way to control the AI. And whether that's knowledge architecture alone, whether it's concepts like agent skills, or even some more complex automations like some of the work that we've done with you, we really believe that you can start building these automations just using English language as basically the coding language behind it all. And so that's partly what we're doing that's, I think, different at Syllepsis, but it's certainly a very different focus to lots of other companies that I speak to, other friends who are on their own AI journey with their own AI startups. I think we're a bit different because we're focused on knowledge and instructions and not application development.
That's very interesting.
I think one last point to make actually is I believe that this is the only investment at the moment that truly compounds every year. Because if you build your own application, you're putting developers in it, building code, probably using AI to write the code, but it creates a brittle structure, with code moving data around from here to there. And the problem with a brittle coding structure is that you have to keep investing in it, you have to keep building it and maintaining it, there's bugs to fix, everything like that. But if you instead focus on knowledge and instructions in English, as long as you're encapsulating everything that you want the technology to do, every year as AI is getting better, it's getting better at following that knowledge and instructions. And so from my own experience of building the tech behind my own company, which is all in this knowledge and instruction area, it's incredible. Whenever new models are released, suddenly my whole tech platform gets better with me doing nothing. This has never happened to me in my life before. Like literally the platform I built gets better with me doing nothing.
Yeah, so because rather than, I guess, developing your own sort of app and platform, you're leaning into Anthropic and OpenAI, etc., who are constantly evolving, and you're just making sure that, I guess, you're set up for those models to deploy them as best they can and to give them the context as we've discussed and to leverage them as best you can, really. Do you think there's going to be still a space for SaaS and for platforms? Where do you see that sort of fitting in?
So I think there is definitely going to be a need for SaaS that enables AI. And what do I mean by that? So that might be because, let's say you have, I don't know, you work in the mapping space or something like that. Then if you're providing a platform where you can provide MCP, which, hopefully most people in this podcast knows MCP is like APIs for AI. As a mapping service, you provide an MCP to an AI, then that's going to handle this transition very well because, of course, you're basically going from providing a platform that's just directly to consumers to instead providing functionality that is enabling AI agents. So I think there's definitely, if SaaS is focusing on how I enable AI, then there's absolutely a future. I think the concerning thing will be SaaS platforms that are not thinking about how to enable AI. There are going to be some where they're going to be robust and resilient for many, many years, even if they don't do this, because they're going to be working in the industries that are further behind on that jagged edge. For example, railway compliance, transport safety compliance. But I think if they're in a more progressive industry like media, I think really every single company needs to be thinking about how they embrace and enable AI. I mean, I know that you guys at Audience Store have been doing this for a long time. And then, of course, you're using AI internally to provide an incredible managed service as well. Yeah, I think every company is developing an AI strategy. But again, there are good strategies and then there are strategies that are questionable. And it's incredibly important to try your best to get it right at the moment, at least.
Definitely. I think you're right. There's probably sort of legacy software systems in industries that are very slow moving, like you say,
Mm,
train safety, for example, that are going to be less moved. And then there's, potentially, especially potentially consumer SaaS and probably platforms in our industry that would be disrupted relatively quickly. But it'd be interesting to see, because I think there's still a potential. The graphic UI is the main interface for SaaS platforms, and that can either be cumbersome
mm,
and annoying because you have to go and type and press buttons, or it can actually be quite efficient because you just need to tick a box rather than write a whole
mm,
sentence for AI. It's I think it will come down to potentially a blend of both and trying to figure out like
mm.
what the best user input is for particular things, and that's going to evolve. I think I'm already thinking, when I have to book a restaurant, for example, I'm just like, oh, I wish I could just instruct my AI to go and find me a restaurant for tonight and book it, based on what it already knows that I like. And surely that's coming. Like that
Yeah,
can't be that far off. But already I have to go to, I have to Google it, which is fine. And then it's kind of, you discover what you like. But yeah, and there's no reason why I couldn't do that, or just send you a few options and say, hey,
yeah,
which one do you want me to book? And then I don't have to fill out my credit card details. I don't have to
yeah.
sign up to OpenTable or another thing, and it's all just done for you. It'd be
I
interesting
mean,
to see how long that takes.
I think, yeah, dynamic rendering of front ends is definitely coming. I mean, on some of I sometimes run workshops and things like that, and I often say, I talk about how by 2040, websites just won't really exist as we know it. You won't have there won't be a maintained website. Instead, any company that needs a website, they'll have an AI that understands that company, how it works, and it will be able to either dynamically render a front end or work with the user or entity's own AI to do whatever it needs via an API or whatever. But I definitely think websites they are, as we know it, kind of at risk, but I think it's just going to change. And I do think that's incredibly interesting for the media industry as well. Because of course, especially in display, like advertising is a big part of the internet, and how it's basically powered, how it's funded, and everything like that. But of course, I imagine in the future, dynamically rendered web, there's still going to be a big need for advertising because, of course, it powers and funds a lot of services. But how exactly is that going to manifest? I don't know. I guess if you're having dynamically rendered websites or dynamically rendered UIs, maybe that particular tool will have done, or service will have done a deal with a dynamic advertising rendering technology. But that will be really interesting. Yeah, definitely moving from kind of static MPUs on HTML pages to a very dynamic future.
Oh, I put a lot of thought into this. It's very interesting because obviously there's a few ways that it could go, right? Now, do you think it's obviously there's probably quite a lot of cost to dynamically render for every individual person, though, right? So is that not quite expensive in terms of like compute and also I guess time, because to dynamically render a website takes time. Your page load, obviously, that's a big part of, for example, your SEO already. It'd be interesting to see how far that goes, like whether they have, because certain areas of it, or, like you said, or maybe a fully dynamic one, or that'd be interesting to see. But we're already doing it. If you think about what we do, dynamic. So we already do dynamic creative optimization. So we
Yeah,
we
yeah,
already show ads on the basis of who's viewing it.
yeah.
Why not show the website on the basis of who's viewing it? And people are, to a certain degree, but yeah, AI will probably make that take
Yeah.
the next step, won't it?
And I think it's an interesting point on cost, but remember the cost of AI processing, or the ability of AI processing. I think the figures are normally bandied around a tenfold decrease in price every year. So the price is coming down, and then you look at some of the latest data coming out, how various people are looking at, or they've taken Kimi K3, which is the latest, 1.7 trillion parameter model that's come out of China, or actually Quen 3.8 or 2.8 or something that's come out 2 days ago. Sorry, things move fast in
It's
AI.
the open source one.
Yeah, exactly. They're open source. So Kimi K3 is already open source its weights. And then people are doing incredible work at the moment at compressing that. So it's all to do with the concept of active parameters, where you can have like these trillions of parameters, but only a subset of them are stored in the active memory of the device. And then you have a mixture of experts model where basically it's lighting up parameters in certain areas when it needs to dive into thinking in that space. And by using these kind of compression techniques and quantization as well and everything like that, you're getting these enormous models on smaller and smaller devices. And I mean, I've got the computer I'm on here is one of the is an M5 MacBook Air, and I can run some really impressive models on this computer. It's a little laptop with no fan. So to be fair, it does get very hot and then starts to throttle itself, but it's incredible what it can do. It's way better than ChatGPT was like, I don't know, 1.5, 2 years ago, just running on my MacBook Air.
It's incredible to see the development. And do you think, so that's very interesting. Is that like sort of areas of the brain then? You'd have like, I don't know, the prefrontal cortex doing one thing and I don't know, hippocampus or if they're the same thing.
It's kind of, it's similar to that. Yeah, it's basically somebody writes in a prompt, and then basically this, by the way, the idea of active parameters happens on each token, and for token, just imagine word, because it's basically a word. So every single word, when it's outputting it as part of the stream of words that it's outputting probabilistically, it is lighting up a different part of the, I'm going to call it the brain, the weights, the parameters, in order to output that word. And of course, sometimes it might do not quite as good a job because it wasn't using the entire brain or the entire weights or parameters to make the decision on what word to put there. But most of the time it's fine because you're, outputting something that's about cookery or something like that. And therefore, you kind of only need to light up the areas of the weights and the parameters that know about cookery. You don't need to light up the area that knows about pistons and the best lubricant to use in a diesel engine.
Sure.
I know nothing about this, by the way, but
it's a lot more efficient, is what you're saying. So it's only using
exactly.
Fantastic.
And these techniques are only just coming out now. They're absolutely cutting edge. I'm reading about new stuff every single day. But what this means is that what people call as edge AI, so AI that works on your edge devices like computers or even mobile phones or even little Raspberry Pis or whatever, is getting better and better because of these compression techniques. And so there's a big question as to whether we actually need all of these data centers. Is the potential crash that everybody talks about in the AI boom market at the moment, is that going to come about from the point of view of the data centers? Because data centers are being built everywhere, but maybe we won't need them because of compression techniques.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Yeah,
we saw this in everything: JPEG, MPEG. Remember when videos were they were, I guess, in analog days, but they were enormous. And now you can get really good video that's tiny because of incredible compression techniques. It's a similar concept, really.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that's, it's really interesting because you think there's a lot of CapEx going in from the big tech firms. Do you think that's, we're straying well off topic here.
Yeah, I know, but it's a good discussion. It's a good discussion.
Do you think that's do you think that's sort of a wise investment? Do you think that's something that's going to pay off longer term?
I mean, goodness, it's so varied and all over the place. I mean, firstly, just a caveat, I don't know much about this. I haven't particularly been following the financial side of AI, but I know, for example, there's odd things going on with kind of like almost like circular investment between various companies. I won't name them in case I get a cease and desist letter or something like that. But, big AI companies, big infrastructure companies, everything like that. So there's definitely odd things going on from a financial point of view. But then there's also kind of sleeping giants, or not sleeping giants. And I think Apple's a really good one to call out because Apple's a really interesting one because they've not really done much in AI other than, they launched Apple Intelligence or whatever it's called, which, if you've used any aspects of it, is a big disappointment because it's not, it's kind of mainly just like animated emojis or memojis or whatever, it's just really, really poor stuff. But behind the scenes, their chips that they built, which is a very different structure to the Intel chips, the the processes there, the way it's been designed, which they of course own the design for, are really incredible for running local AI. And I feel like they're, for example, in a long game when it comes to AI at the moment, where they are just like building better and better hardware that is going to run incredible tech when they want to fully move into that space. And of course, they're very trusted from a privacy and compliance point of view. And they're just penetrated absolutely everywhere. So, and then there's so many small AI startups who are currently building stuff, getting loads of investment in, because there is just this glut of investment in AI. And some of them are going to go stratospheric, like Cursor or whoever, who achieved 100 million EBITDA in, I don't know, 2 seconds or something like that. Some of them are going to go stratospheric and make their investors loads of money. But many of them are going to totally fail. And part of the reason why they fail is because at the moment, it still takes like 6 months to build an application and roll it out, even using, the most advanced AI technologies to code it and test it. I mean, some people could do it faster, but generally, let's say 6 months, which is unbelievable. A few years ago, you can do that. And but by the time that you've actually rolled it out and started your marketing, for all you know, something's changed in the foundational model ecosystem, and they've basically developed a capability that totally renders what you've built useless.
Anthropic are doing a lot of that, I suppose, right? Anthropic.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've touched on the fact that I'm an Anthropic fanboy, and I'm afraid to say. And yeah, they're doing a lot of that. And like we've seen the legal SaaS market take hits because of Anthropic releasing a load of legal skills. We've seen Figma taking hits because they rolled out Claude Design. And it's just going to go on and on like this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because, like you say, Anthropic are kind of focused on building. They're also building out sort of applications on top of almost the core model as well. So they're obviously extending the use case, and I think it's probably a good thing because they're best placed to do that. But it does also, like you say, make it difficult for startups in the space if they're like, oh, we can build this on top, and then. Somebody like Anthropic just does it. It kind of kills your business, doesn't it?
You're so right. And actually, just to explain something for your listeners, I'm sure many of them know this, but AI 2 years ago, or LLMs at least, you had a prompt and a response. So you put your prompt in, and then ChatGPT 2 years ago would write you the limerick in the style of whoever about your mate, and it would basically probabilistically output one word at a time, and that was it. Prompt, response. Prompt with a bit of context, response, prompt with a bit of context, response. But every time you prompted, you'd get one response from the model. Of course, the way agentic AI works now, and what Anthropic and the others are catching up on doing, with whether it's in Claude Design or Claude Cowork or Claude Chat alone, you're putting in a prompt, and then it's going to the model, and the model is firstly outputting its reasoning, its chain of thought. And its chain of thought might think, right, okay, I need to break down the task into these 10 points. And so then, without asking you, it goes back to the model again and says, hey, expand on point 1. And point 1 comes back with a load of subtasks. One of the subtasks is to go and check some files somewhere. Another subtask is to do a tool call somewhere. That all comes back. It goes to the model again, makes another decision, produces some more reasoning, checks off a list. And basically, you write that original prompt, and the model is called like 100 to 200 to 300 times. Sometimes if it's running for hours, the model might be called thousands or tens of thousands of times. And what's really interesting is that there's the intelligence in the model, so how good it is at spitting out the next word every time you call it. But there's also the intelligence in the orchestration, all of those hundreds and thousands of calls and how they interact, and how they can call different tools, like to start building a PowerPoint or to update an opportunity on Salesforce. And there is so much intelligence in the orchestration, and that's where Anthropic is light years ahead, well, not light years, it's 6 to 12 months ahead at the moment. But it's also where, exactly what you were saying, that's the biggest fear for AI startups at the moment. That this orchestration and this thinking, this ability to think like a human, that AGI level for knowledge work, it can basically do anything. So It can check calendars, it can call tools, it can load stuff, it can update records, it can send emails to people, it can check for approval. And that's the stuff that applications were doing before. But now the AI can do it all for you. And if you're instructing that AI with the right knowledge and instructions, the English language code I was talking about, suddenly the way that it does all of that exactly fits your mental model as a manager, as a employee at a company, as a team at a company. And that's incredible, because suddenly you go from having this application that you have to fit your own mental model into and think, oh, how do I use Salesforce when it doesn't quite do what I want it to do?
And you're using suddenly, maybe 10% of the features, right? You're using, well,
exactly. And you're getting, and then a few of the features you're really frustrated with, and you contact support, and eventually after 6 months, they say they put it on the roadmap, and then whatever, you chase again and again, and it's always next year. But suddenly instead, you're in control of the knowledge and the instructions that's passed to your agentic AI, and literally within 1 hour, it can change the way you're interacting with it to fit your mental model exactly. And that's incredible. And sorry, that was a really long rant.
No, super exciting. I agree with your vision in many ways. But we've talked a lot about how you're seeing the biggest impacts for your clients, the knowledge base side of things, the knowledge architecture, sorry. And then I guess we've also covered now which sort of AI developments you're most excited about, more generally. But it'd be good to understand what you think AI is going to do to the media and advertising industry, since that's sort of our space and you've got a bit of a background in it. How do you think it's going to change things in our space in the next few years?
So I think, let me think. So firstly, I should ground, sorry, this is AI terminology. I'm going to ground the conversation. I never used the phrase grounding before a couple of years ago, but that's what you do with AI models. You ground them. I'm going to ground it in my area of expertise, which is, of course, how does business operations use LLMs? So where I'm not that expert is AI creative. So video creative, imagery, music, things like that. And to be fair, I'm a bit uncomfortable about that whole area, because I feel that there are so many artists around the world that have kind of had their content ripped off in order to train AI models that are now taking their jobs. And so that's one reason why I've not really wanted to play in that space from a Syllepsis point of view. So I'm very focused on how do businesses use AI for operations? And if there was any ripping off there, it was basically ripping off of Deloitte, PwC, Accenture, Harvard Business Review. And frankly, if they ever complained about it, it would be the world's tiniest violin playing as Deloitte complains about all of their press releases of many years being used to train AI models and how to run a business. So yeah, grounding you in business operations, how are things going to change? So I think that everybody is going to slowly become an AI manager. And so what do I mean by that? Is that you will be working with AI, running a team of agents that are doing the menial work for you, and also some of the great creative work and the brainstorming work and everything like that. But you will become a manager where you are reviewing the output of all of those AIs. If it's operational, you're responsible for it. If it's creative, it's almost like you've got a creative team working for you and you're like, no, that's useless, go back and try again, or that's brilliant, work it out, and I want a dog playing a violin, mourning the loss of, I don't know, Deloitte's consulting arm. Sorry, weird one.
So I think got it in for Deloitte a bit.
No. But I do. We're very tiny, but I like to think that there are competitors. So I think everybody's going to be turning into an AI manager. But I think what is going to be incredibly important for businesses in media and advertising and AdTech and all of that space at the moment is the strength of your brand, the strength of your relationships, the strength of your audience. And that's really interesting, because actually it means that the most important roles of all are actually all the more kind of sales, strategy, commercial roles, because it's going to be so important to keep that brand reputation, those audiences, relationships high, because basically in 5 years' time, a spotty teenager in their parents' spare bedroom, or a non-spotty teenager, will be able to basically recreate an entire tech stack in about 2 days. And so what are they lacking? They're lacking that brand relationships that exist in the audience. But then again, we're seeing again and again how quickly industries can pivot, or the ecosystem can pivot when somebody comes up with something that's like hits the zeitgeist. Things change very, very quickly. So the other thing that's going to be so important is brands and tech companies and advertising agencies is being as agile as possible, because you're going to have to react to those teenagers recreating a tech stack in 2 days. And that's going to be challenging. And really, frankly, the bigger a company is, the more inertia there is as well, which is going to be very challenging. There's a lot of oil tankers around, and there's suddenly a lot of speedboats zipping around them. And that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
So you think that effectively the moat for ad tech companies is sort of quickly being eroded, and that actually has now become more the relationships and the sales and strategy side? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think there's also there's going to be a consolidatory, is that a word? There's a consolidation effect of AI, because it will be so easy for a company in one space, when they're asked by a client, can you do this as well, to actually move into that area. And I think there's going to be a natural consolidation effect there, because basically the barrier to entry to new areas is going to be lower. And then of course that's where the brand and the relationship and the audience is so important as well. And it's interesting because there's obviously those two major forces in every industry of bundling and debundling, or fragmentation and consolidation. And I think AI has an effect in both ways. It has a fragmentary effect in enabling people to create new business ideas and concepts as well, but it has a consolidatory effect in actually bringing together different ideas. So I'm afraid I haven't given an answer there. I've just talked around some concepts, but I guess the most important thing is going to be a maelstrom of crazy stuff going on, both exciting and scary, and a lot of things going down.
Sounds scary, actually. No worries. I think we've talked about the ad industry. We've talked about AI a lot, but I mean, what are the trends should media leaders particularly be paying attention to outside of AI? You obviously have that background in media and advertising. What do you think are the trends are going on that they should be aware of?
I mean, this is tied into AI, but of course, bearing in mind my specialty subject at the moment is AI. But I think a really important one is AI slop. And the reason why I'm bringing this up when you say in areas other than AI is because, the trend is the search for authenticity. And I really believe that that's going to be a fundamental reaction. I think there's going to be loads of AI slop for a long, long time, but I do think the younger generations they already are. They're searching authentic experiences because there's so much inauthenticity everywhere. And I think that's a major sea change happening across all industries. And it's really, how do you tap into that? How do you, I think, support that? Because I think it's a good thing. What does that mean for your business? So I know, for example, Audience Store, you work with a lot of premium media, and that's so important because the premium media is where there's going to be less AI slop. And so I think actually any company involved in the premium media space, you should be working out how to leverage this basically. And what's interesting is it's going to be a bit of a, it's going to be potentially very damaging for the social media companies basically, where so much AI slop is being created. Can't remember, was it Deezer or something. Again, I haven't followed music too much, but Deezer the other day said something like 10,000 hours or 10,000 AI generated songs are being submitted either per day or per hour or something like that, and yeah, I think in terms of social media, there is going to be an effect there where people are going to be getting fed up with AI slop, and they're going to be searching for more authentic experiences.
It's interesting, because obviously, do you think certain areas of media will be commoditized then? Maybe the more sort of reporting based, fact based pieces where it's less important and more like opinion. I don't know. The other side, like that sort of side, will become more premiumized, and people will be seeking authentic experiences there. Do you think there's any part of media where AI would be relevant in terms of using it to generate content?
I mean, it's a really interesting question. That just from a personal point of view, just in the last few days, I've found myself, because I'm a big, I really enjoy watching documentaries on YouTube. And in the last few days, I've noticed, I don't know whether it's a new user experience, but they've started highlighting if it's an AI generated documentary. And I've caught myself actually really enjoying some of these AI generated documentaries. And then often like 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I want to actually go and see a proper creator who's like, put time into this. And I think that's fascinating. So I don't know that I'm torn at the moment. I mean, I do think with an AI documentary, I don't necessarily have fears about plagiarism and that stealing of copyright, because often an AI documentary, it's basically research through, whether it's coming from Wikipedia or whatever, lots of history books or whatever, but then it's often just bundling together different bits of footage that they have access to through various rights libraries or stock video libraries and everything like that. So
that's the sort of side that would be more commoditized and easier to replace with AI, and that maybe you wouldn't mind so much if that was AI generated.
I have less, whereas the flip side to that is I do not listen to any AI music because I feel uncomfortable about it at the moment. Until I feel that musicians aren't being screwed over around the world, I'm not really comfortable listening to AI music, basically. And because I feel there's been a lot more copyright theft going on. Having said all this, I'm definitely not your average consumer. So I don't think most people are having these things going through their heads when they're deciding what media to consume or not. So
True.
We're just going to have to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Brilliant. So obviously we've talked a lot about AI. What about your company? What about Syllepsis? Over the next 12 months, what have you guys got on the horizon? You mentioned you're becoming CEO, so you guys are growing. That's great. What else you got coming up?
So I guess firstly, we're moving into new areas. So I've got a lot of background in media, TV, advertising. So I've been working with a lot of companies in that space, but we're moving into different areas as well. I've been just literally right at the moment. Earlier today, I was on a call with people in healthcare policy as a particular industry. I've mentioned things like railway and transport and infrastructure engineering. So that's really interesting to us because basically the techniques and the methodologies that we've been developing, they apply to any knowledge work industry. And therefore, AdTech, media, broadcast, they're very progressive. They're very at the cutting edge of that jagged edge, as I was saying. And there's a lot of interesting areas that are much further behind that I'd like to apply ourselves to. And actually, I have to say, one of the great things is even looking into how do we expand through maybe enabling consultants who are kind of senior domain experts who want to move into this area, and maybe they can build up their own kind of portfolio of clients supported by Syllepsis technology and Syllepsis methodology. That's one area we're looking at. The other is that despite what I said earlier about SaaS and how SaaS is at risk, we're already looking into moving a bit into SaaS, and we've started building some of our own technology, but it's purely where we enable AIs. So it's all about knowledge management, knowledge access. So we're doing some work at the moment. There's actually, unfortunately, I can't talk about it yet, but there's a really exciting big program I'm working on with quite a number of companies across multiple countries in Europe and even North America as well, which I think we're going to be going public about in maybe 6 weeks' time or something like that, which is using some of this technology that we've been developing, but it's still very much focused around the knowledge area. I can't really say any more, but that's incredibly exciting because I guess it's just the next part of our journey. As we always say to our clients, start with knowledge and then work out where to go from there, because then whatever you do with AI, it then at least understands and knows your business. And it's kind of the same for us. We started with knowledge and now we're working out, oh, that's interesting. Should we be moving horizontally into a different business area and working on knowledge, or should we be developing technology that just really helps in this area of AI having access to the right knowledge? So that's really, I guess, the exciting news, although, yeah, I haven't really been able to detail that much, have I?
No, it sounds interesting.
Stealth mode.
Stealth mode. It kind of plays into what we were talking about earlier with the how things are going to turn out with the use of AI and natural language instruction versus graphical user interface. And I guess you guys are still, you're now building graphical user interfaces to try and help manage the knowledge architecture portion of what you're doing, which is very interesting to see in here. But cool, we're going to move into the quick fire questions section. Just as quick as you can, each question. So what's your favorite AI tool right now?
Favorite AI tool? I know what you're going to say. Okay, the AI tool that I spend day in, day out using, like maybe 8 to 10 hours a day. And of course, you know this, I've said I'm a fanboy, but it's Claude Code. It's not Claude Cowork, it's not Claude Chat, or I use a bit of Claude Design. It's actually Claude Code. And I basically run my entire business through Claude Code. I even run parts of my personal life through it now. For example, I went on a bike packing trip across Sweden recently, and Claude Code helped me plan the whole route. It helped me plan the various resupply points, the supermarkets to go to, you know, how much distance we were going to travel per day, everything like that. I'm such a geek doing this in my spare time. It also helped me pack my bags. When you're cycling with the tents and sleeping bag all on your bags, you've got to know what goes in each bag, and so the bike's not unweighted. That was all done through Claude Code. So I'm a massive fan of Claude Code, and I actually think that really using AI coding agents are the most powerful form of AI on the planet. And if you can work out a way to actually start experimenting and using AI coding agents to do whatever you need to do, it actually takes your AI usage to the next level, I'd say.
Very interesting. I wasn't quite expecting that, but yeah, very interesting that using that for like everything. What's your favorite brand in the media or ad tech space?
Favorite brand in the media or ad tech space? Oof. And I've got to try to avoid clients and past companies and everything. I mean, well, firstly, I should point out I've worked in TV for many years, so I'm not going to say an individual broadcaster or anything like that, but I love TV. I love the power of broadcast, and I feel that broadcast has been embattled from all sorts of areas over the last 10 to 15 years. Obviously, they've been embattled by the digital players, Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc. But they've also been embattled from programmatic and the programmatic ecosystem. And you know, at first there was obviously so much fragmentation or debundling or whatever you want to call it, that it was really the broadcasters were getting hit the most. And there's all those studies about, you know, the number of cents in the pound or cents in the dollar or pennies in the pound that were going to third parties throughout and lost out the value chain. That's changing now. You know, it's a lot of consolidation going on, and so that's sorting itself out. But I believe they've been embattled for a long time, and they've been dealing with Facebook and Google, TikTok, talking about the numbers and the delivery and the last click attribution. I do think that AI is opening up a new opportunity for them to basically start to exert their influence again. I won't say dominance because, things have moved on, but exert their influence, which is that they are absolutely incredible at bringing audiences, bringing people together into shared experiences that are incredibly meaningful and emotional, that are discussed for days and days afterwards, that water cooler moment. And, all credit to Netflix and Disney, etc. They're doing it as well through their releases, but, less so from the point of view of like live programming and news, current affairs, sports, everything like that. And I think a lot of that's almost been lost. There's almost been a bit too much focus on the stats, the view through rate, the viewability, the last click attribution. And the world's kind of lost sight a bit of the quality of that content and what it means emotionally and what it means to attention and engagement with the brand. And so I'm going to say that I've got a love of broadcast, in all forms, TV, radio. I've worked with a few radio companies recently, and I think they are going to be there's going to be a resurgence in the awareness of their influence, I think, because of new AI technologies. And that's something that's going to really, really excite me. Now, I haven't said a favorite brand there. I've
totally we need a brand, Jon.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a good politician's answer, though.
Very good. The only thing that was missing was the old hand gesture. You need the
whatever
they do, isn't it? Like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Or just a Tory power pose.
Okay, we'll say any and all broadcasters then. And who in the industry deserves a shout out and why? I guess it could be in your industry or media ad tech.
Who deserves a shout out? My goodness, I mean, I've worked with so many talented people in the past. I love the makers and the analytical data scientists that I've worked with. And I'm just going to say that as a phrase. Some of those people will know. I'm not going to say any names there. Well, actually, one person I should shout out for. Okay, this is very amusing and this is podcast related. I'm going to give a shout out to Rhys McLaughlin, who I used to work with at Videology, who's recently been at ITV, and I know he's got a new exciting venture at the moment that's currently in stealth mode. But so whatever, watch his LinkedIn. Main reason I'm giving a shout out to him is, firstly, he's been a great supporter of Syllepsis, and great friend over the years. But also, very amusingly, he was on a podcast a few months ago, which I only found out about weeks after, and I listened to it. And he was asked who he would invest money in if he was investing money at them. And I think he said something like Apple, Google, or something like that. And then he said, and also Syllepsis or another small startup. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. I think, so I got to give a shout out for Rhys for that, for putting me amongst. I mean, screw Deloitte. I'm going for Apple and Google. That's my vision.
Shoot for the stars. Yeah,
shoot for the stars.
Very good.
But generally the shout outs to all of the makers at the moment who are being empowered by AI. All of the, a friend of mine's got, who I see on LinkedIn sometimes, he's got a great cap that's called ADHG, as in kind of rap gangster kind of thing. And I think, there's a lot of ADHDers out there who are just filled and brimming with ideas, who are now being empowered by AI and what you can do. And I think really this is the decade of the makers. And it's a shout out to all the makers out there.
Awesome.
Of all neurodiversity flavors, by the way, not just ADHD, neuronormative makers as well.
Very good. And what's one AI myth you would like to bust?
Ooh, one AI myth. Goodness. That's a really good one. I mean, I think the most important AI myth at the moment, but I don't know how long it's going to last for, is that kind of sense that everybody has that AI is sentient when it's not at all. And I think most people know this. It's probabilistic word generation. But really it's fascinating to see that sentience or that aura of sentience manifests itself. So whether it's me discussing, personal things with AI and really feeling it's there and listening to me, by the way, AI is great for if you want to actually try out having a psychotherapist without actually paying for a psychotherapist, AI is great for that. I was playing around with that a few months ago. Or the fact that what is it? So AI sentience. It seems so sentient, but it's not. It's just word generation from context, and at the moment, it doesn't feel like there's anything to worry about from my point of view. You know, we're all talking about the rise of the machines and everything like that, but it's not in a place to happen yet, because we haven't basically added all of the core building blocks of real sentience, which is things like, well, memory, long-term memory, or agency, the ability to act on its own. OpenClaw did that a bit, and it did some scary things, but yeah, it's at the moment. Don't worry about interacting with AI thinking it's sentient. It's not. But having said that, I can't speak for where we're going to be in 3 years' time. And there's some scary things that could happen.
My personal opinion, I think, there's a lot of scaremongering by the AI peddlers, because it just generates news and attention to their product. Yeah, and they love to do that, and the more regulation for them, the better, because they're already ahead. The worst that can happen is a competitor catches up, so they're just like, well, we need to regulate. It's going to take over the world. It's like, okay, sure, but I think there's a lot of anthropomorphism that goes on, if that's the correct pronunciation.
No, absolutely, and I find myself guilty of it as well. Of course, I do.
Me too. Yeah, if I'm talking to even ChatGPT, I'll be like, oh, you kind of forget, and it's like you're talking to a human. But that's an amazing part of the technology. So, what's the biggest lesson you've learned during your career?
Oh goodness, during my whole career, I think the first thing to call out is that I have learned more in the last year and a half, 2 years since founding a business than I've ever learned in my career before. And I think that's partly because when you're founding a business and, bootstrapping it, building it from scratch, you're basically doing everything. But there's also partly because I'm doing it in the AI era. So I have like a coach that is coaching me through anything, like whether it's P&L or HR, policy documents, whatever. So I'm learning so much. And actually on that, one of the biggest areas of learning for me in the last year has been all around business development. Because of course, being a founder, I now have to develop business. And I've always been a good evangelist, but I've never been a comfortable salesperson or closer. And I had to say, I have so much respect for everybody I've ever worked for in business development through my whole career. I used to think...
It's brutal, right?
I used to think, what the hell, these people are just literally paid to go out for a boozy lunch on a Friday or to fly down to Cannes and whatever, have a knees up. But it's so hard. And I totally respect you all now so much. But yeah, that's an incredibly important thing I've learned in the last year or so. I think probably the other most difficult thing that I learned early in my career, I guess it was how to manage people. I always found that very challenging at first because I wasn't like a dictatorial manager. I didn't want to micromanage anybody. I had to learn to manage people who knew way more than me. And then, of course, you need to learn your own management style, how you kind of interact, engage with people, keep them engaged, get them excited about their role, address their concerns, and listen. That's a big challenge for me that throughout my whole life. I'm a bit better talking than I am at listening. And management was a really important, obviously that was a big challenge learning that during my career. And what I find interesting is that use of AI is a new form of management. So that's kind of interesting as well, because we're all going to be learning new ways of managing instead.
So you're managing AI now, like the
exactly, and they are very human-like.
Yeah,
as again, we discussed, there could be sentient seeming.
Yeah, there could be new job titles there as well. AI manager,
AI counselor.
Brill. And so, what's one piece of advice for businesses starting on their AI journey? Just one.
Oof. Well, the first is the obvious one. Focus or think about knowledge first. Don't just roll out ChatGPT. think about what GPT can access in terms of knowledge about your business. Otherwise, it's just going to be generic kind of generic output or output with lots of mistakes. So that's a really important one. I think be sensitive. There are, I would say, across everybody I speak to as an AI consultant, there's between 5 and 10% of people who are really scared. And that's, that's okay. Like, a lot of change is potentially happening. People are reading lots of scary things, and yeah, just be sensitive to people. And not everybody's able to jump in at the deep end like some people are. I'd say that's incredibly important as well, especially from a kind of change management point of view. I guess tied into that as well is, in terms of driving that change, do focus on your internal evangelists and support them safely with the right security protocols, but don't lock things down too much so they can't innovate or do anything. And then you support those kind of experimenters and those evangelists, and then it will kind of grow from there, because they will be showing different people the cool stuff they're doing. And then the people who are doubters or the people who are scared are going to see these things and realize that actually I can do this, or I can use it in this way as well. And actually that's just going to make my job better. It's going to allow me to focus on the more important things like the brand building, the relationship building and everything like that, and the strategy. And yeah, I'd say, yeah, so focus on those evangelists and innovators.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jon, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. It's been really interesting, and I know we sort of segued off the questions quite a bit there, but that's because it was so interesting, mate.
It's a great chat. Really enjoyed that.
And it's a topic that I really enjoy, and obviously you do too. It's something you're very passionate about, you can see. So yeah, mate, it's been really good. Thanks for coming on, and yeah, speak to you soon.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.